Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective Podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're doing on Tuesday afternoon. Joining us from New York City, where he's getting ready to go to the All-Star Weekend this week in the Bay, it's Tim Bontemps.
Hello, everybody.
Are you looking forward to Kevin Hart emceeing the event and providing commentary over the top of the game?
I'm looking forward to Monday morning.
Joining us from Dallas, Texas. Dallas, Texas. What a town. It's Ben MacMahon.
Howdy, partners. Tell you what, man, it is just always good to be home and, around all my friends and neighbors and feeling the love from the people of Texas, the friendship state, as Donnie Nelson called it during Luka Doncic's intro presser way back
Is
when.
Texas called the friendship state? Is that a thing?
It actually is an obscure nickname that Donnie did indeed use during Luka's intro presser, as you can read in The Wonder Boy.
Their Wonder Boy.
Oh, look at that. There we go.
Pre-order it now. So what, by the way, what was the reaction? And maybe you don't know about, I assume that Dirk Nowitzki going out to Luka's first game as a Laker on Monday was well received by the Mavs fans. I think. I don't know. I
think it was very well received by the Mavs fans because, quite frankly, I think that 99% of Mavs fans wish they could have made the same trip. Dude, I'm not like even joking when I say this. There are a lot of Mavs fans right now. They're struggling with a lot of emotions. One emotion they're struggling with is, damn, am I rooting for the Lakers now? Like Luka is the kind of star. There are, like with LeBron, right? There are people who are pissed at LeBron when he left Cleveland, but obviously no one's mad at Luka in this case. I mean, I guess
right.
Nico, some of those, but like no fans are mad at Luka. But there are people when LeBron left Cleveland, there was someone decided, am I riding with him in Miami? Okay, then back to Cleveland. Okay, to LA. Whereas with Luka, I think all Mavericks fans, as much as it pains them, like they want to see this guy fulfill his potential and be one of the all-time greats. And there are definitely people who are like, you know what? I guess I'm a Lakers fan now because I'm riding with Luka. And so Dirk being at that game was, and he did his little tweet, hey, I'm a Mav for life. I'm here to support my guy, Luka, or whatever he said. But it was a pretty strong statement. And I think it was more of Patrick Dumont sending the message, hey, this absolutely insane conspiracy theory that was spreading around the internet about there has to be something else beside the reasons that have been reported for why this trade's being made. Oh, they're trying to take the team to Vegas. No, that's not true. Look at me and my pal, the Dallas mayor. It's been the messaging and the PR approach has been a challenging obstacle. By the way, who was right next to Dirk in LA enjoying the Luka debut last night? Old Scooter, Scott Tomlin, friend of the pod, longtime VP of communications for the Dallas Mavericks, did a hell of a job in that role for years and years, and left before last season to be the executive director of the Dirk Nowitzki Foundation. And, but still like a guy who players loved and certainly had a great relationship with Luka. And so he was also there to support Luka in the first game in that gold and purple.
Bontemps, I've been a little bit transported back to the 90s this week because when I was a teenager, it's not comparable on the size scale, but Bernie Kosar, Bill Belichick cut Bernie Kosar, who he never led the Browns to the Super Bowl, but was like the kind of the Luka of Cleveland at the time.
He's the best quarterback they've had since Otto Graham, right? Pretty clearly,
and the best quarterback they've had ever since.
That's what I mean.
And actually,
in the whole time since Otto Graham.
Yes. And he became a Dallas Cowboy like that week. I think Aikman was hurt, interestingly, and people in Cleveland were wearing. There was a run on Kosar Cowboys jerseys. People were wearing the star in Cleveland, and there's not hate.
Is that how LeBron became a Cowboys fan? That's when LeBron started loving the Cowboys.
No, I don't think LeBron cared about Bernie Kosar. I've never heard LeBron speak Bernie Kosar's name, but anyway, I can I was probably about 14 or 15 when that happened, and a Kozar fan, so I can kind of relate to it, where people were like rooting for the Cowboys. The Cowboys won the Super Bowl that year, by the way. So anyway, uh, I have to say, I never thought I would say the words I'm about to say. I'm very appreciative of the balanced, rational, and calming viewpoint of Kyrie Irving throughout this process, because he seems to
Yeah.
be repeatedly able to both make a coalition attempt at forming, and showing empathy with the fans, and also support for Luka and support for his teammates. Like, I actually think it might be a good idea if the Mavericks organization would reach out to Kyrie to let him guide them in this time
Seriously.
of
I mean,
strife,
and
because everything he is saying is actually calming.
yes. And Kyrie last night, it was like the fans getting booted for, fire Nico chants and for t-shirts with Mary Madison's face on it with a clown nose. And, like, what are you doing? I mean, why are you like amplifying this to where it is a massive international story? That's exactly what you're doing. You've got security like, look at, oh, what did you say? You're get out of here. Oh, that poster board, that doesn't, it's not the postcard that it's supposed to be, oh, that's bigger than a placard. You can't have that. Derogatory term, fire. That's, I mean, what are you doing? You're making this a massive story when, like, of course the fans are upset. Let them boo, let them chant. If they're not cussing and fussing and whatever, like throwing crap, who cares? But Kyrie, like you said, he's calm. He's like, hey, I get it. I understand. Kyrie was like, different. He's like, it's a different deal. But like, man, you know how mad I was when Jay Kidd forced a trade from my New Jersey Nets when I was a kid. He brought that up. Klay Thompson, Klay's basically like, hey, we all understand how much these fans
Well,
love Luka.
Clay
Like, it,
Clay being a calming influence is not a surprise.
yes.
In the
My
past,
point is,
Kyrie hasn't exactly been unifying, but
that's fair.
Well, you can
He
make a pretty
certainly
good
has been.
argument. Nobody benefits more from this trade than Kyrie Irving on many
He's
fronts.
got leverage,
So
and Kyrie has
he's
been
he,
the leader of the team since he's been in
well, I think
Dallas. But
Luka's benefited from this trade. He's now he's like a
I'm
martyr in
talking
Dallas.
about
He's a
I'm
conquering
I'm
hero in
talking about
LA.
the people left. I'm talking about the people left behind.
Okay,
There's
fair
one
enough.
winner in Dallas right now, and it's Kyrie Irving, who now has maximum leverage to get a gigantic contract this summer, and is quite clearly the guy totally running the ship with the Mavs. I mean, yeah, you're right, MacMahon. He's been a big presence in the locker room since he got there, but I mean, it's his show now. Like
yeah,
there ain't anybody else, and like it's he and Anthony Davis going forward. And you could say, yeah, well, it was he and Luka, but it wasn't he and Luka. It was Luka's team, and Kyrie was there as a secondary guy. And his free agency this summer was going to be rather interesting to see how it was handled. Well, now it shouldn't be very interesting. Like he should be getting the bag. So
yeah.
I here he
I,
is, nice
I,
and calm and relaxed. Why wouldn't he be?
I've never had a whole lot of doubt about Kyrie's free agency this time around. Certainly after his first year when Blockbuster traded
Mm-hmm.
into a tank, which is an interesting pathway. Anyways,
Could be,
um,
could be repeating itself.
certainly his first year, there was a lot in question of free agency. And frankly, if the Lakers would have made a run at him, like who knows what would have happened if they could have, because they could have gotten in the neighborhood of Dallas's offer, not to the number, but just saying that would
Yeah,
have
well,
been interesting.
they
But
would have had to say goodbye to just about all these guys who led him to the conference finals that year.
it would have been tough to let D'Angelo Russell go for sure.
D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura. Okay, sure.
Don't
Yeah,
forget
exactly.
about Jared Vanderbilt.
Oh
Sure.
man, I'll tell you what. Hey, the Lakers have been hot since he came back from that injury, just like Mac 10 and all them fellas are telling us.
Well, anyway, let me just ask this. I mean, so we're recording this Tuesday afternoon. We don't know what the Anthony Davis update will be.
Maybe there'll be another pod later today with a further update on Anthony Davis.
Can't
The
do it.
last one went so great, MacMahon.
Can't do it.
So great.
Can't do it. Things would have been so much better off if we had just not done it, which was what I suggested.
I disagree. I think they might not have been. They might have been worse off. It might have been better off for you, but for the listeners, thoroughly enjoyed the opening segment of the podcast the other day.
I don't care.
I will admit I flapped my gums in that with a couple words, and unnecessary little jab that got me in a little bit of hot water with some folks who already had their pitchforks after me. So, sometimes I flap my gums and stuff comes out. My bad.
Quasi apology. Um,
That's a
I
hell
would
of a
just
lot more
say
of an apology than I'm going to ever get for anything that's ever said about me.
that's
No,
So
true.
listen,
you
That's
take
true.
it that way.
I can get petty sometimes, and I just need
Correct.
to limit my pettiness to Bontemps and those little
I
fella
think we can all
refs.
That's
agree.
Bontemps and little fella
I
refs are
think,
the only
I think we
targets of
can
my
all agree.
pettiness for
that's safe. Those are your
So
safe spaces.
we
Pal.
don't know what the Anthony Davis official update will be as of right now in the late
I don't know if
afternoon
there
on
will be an
Tuesday.
Anthony Davis official
Well,
update.
they
I mean, come on.
the
Well, there hasn't
Mavericks
been
are
a
not.
Jason. By the way, we've gotten this far. We should mention that the Dallas Mavericks played the Sacramento Kings on Monday night. If I remember correctly, MacMahon, they were up 12 points in the fourth quarter after Daniel Gafford got hurt. Looked like, all right, at least the Mavs are going to come out of this with a win in what's a pretty massive couple of games, like we talked about going into this week, playing against the Kings and the Warriors, teams right behind them in this battle to stay in the play-in mix in the West. And then DeMar DeRozan comes back, hits a game-time bucket with 3 seconds to go, makes a crazy game winner with 2 seconds to go in overtime after messing up and giving Klay Thompson a chance to
Was
win the
that, by
game
the
for
way, I
Dallas.
haven't seen the 2-minute report. Was that ruled a illegal maneuver with his feet?
I also have
It
not
looked
seen
legal at the time, but I will check and see if the
next
last
step
2-minute
to me.
report is up.
Listen, you're telling me all
But
these details. I definitely remember the DeRozan step through, like doesn't point me at all. I was so busy looking at what the hell was going on in those sections
well,
behind
I
that
know. That's
basket
why I'm telling you what
and,
happened. So
trying to
DeRozan wins the
browbeat
game.
Mavericks to giving a statement on why people are getting booted.
Well, I know. So the point is, DeRozan wins the game, and then you guys were waiting for Jason Kidd and to talk about what happened in the game and Daniel Gafford getting hurt and everything else. And it's now almost 24 hours later, and we're still waiting for Jason Kidd to talk about it. And I guess he's not going to talk about it till pregame on Wednesday against Golden State. Maybe he won't do that availability either. Maybe he'll just
I
go on
mean,
strike. I guess we'll find out.
listen, we're throwing like PR norms out the window because it's also like, yes, a coach post game press conference, they're pretty like just run the mill type thing. Sometimes
Well,
they're like 2 or
listen,
3 minutes. I don't get it. I don't get
look,
it.
that's the part of the job of the coach is to be the face of the franchise in good times and in bad. That's part of what he gets paid for. Let me just say this: Anthony Davis is going to be out for a while. I believe, as of we sit here right now, that he has avoided surgery. I believe that's the
Yes,
current
certainly that is
plan.
the hope.
But I also believe that is going to be a significant period. What does significant mean? Weeks, weeks and weeks. So let me ask you this, MacMahon. Assuming that Kyrie can keep this back issue at bay, um, what is the real prognosis? You made a joke about them making a blockbuster trade and then ending up in the lottery. Let's talk turkey.
I didn't make a joke about that. I was talking about 2 years ago what happened. Are you
Okay.
suggesting history could repeat itself? Are
I'm
you
just saying, let's talk turkey. What's the prognosis here if
Well,
AD
let's
is out?
let's do it. Let's do it this way. Their schedule, we've already reported he's going to be out for up to a month, right?
yeah,
At ESPN.
which is
I mean,
mm,
let's
possibly
just sit at a
optimistic.
month right now. Let's
Okay.
just sit at a month right now. All right. Here's their upcoming schedule. They play Golden State tomorrow, Wednesday. I think at this point I would call that a loss. I don't know what you guys would say. Uh, they play Miami on the second night of a back-to-back for both teams. They'll give them a win for that, so they're 1-1. They play the Pelicans coming out of the break. I would say that's a win. They're 2-1. They play the Warriors in Golden State, the Lakers in Los Angeles. Going to be kind of a interesting game on the 25th of
You think
February,
so?
I would say.
I suspect
Those are.
Mr. McMahon will be there. I'll be there too, Mr. McMahon. I look forward
I
to
will be
seeing you.
watching from home, unfortunately, but
Ooh,
I would say those are
hey,
probably both.
hold on. I got to negotiate.
All right.
An LA tradition, dinner on Windy? Go on.
You might have earned that over the last few days. We think the Warriors and Lakers games are losses, probably, right? Road losses.
They're certainly
Probably.
going to be tough
We're just doing the
yes.
percentages.
I don't think
Then
they'll
they
be
come home
fake.
and play the Hornets. That's probably a win.
Listen, you never assume the Hornets win, because the last time that the Mavericks were in a blockbuster trade wake and the Hornets came in a little while later was the night that Luka wore that "All I Need Is a Suvo, Meso, and Rakia" T-shirt and said he's never been more frustrated in his life. Dennis Smith Jr. hit the dagger.
Well, listen, they're 3-3. We've got them there through the end of February, right? This is then the schedule in March. Home for Milwaukee, home for Sacramento, at Milwaukee, home for Memphis, home for Phoenix, at San Antonio, at Houston. That's through the stretch that Anthony Davis is going to be out.
They would do
That's
really
a lot
well
of losses.
They would do really, really well to go 500 in that stretch.
Well, and AD's going to be out for a while. Lively's going to be out through that stretch. Kyrie, let me just tell you, and again, Luka wasn't playing before, but especially since they made the trade, Kyrie was one of the several guys who sat during the post-trade blowout in Cleveland, right? When there was I stepped out there in a daze and looked up, it was like 50-19. So he sat that game. 42 minutes in Philly, 40 minutes in Boston, 39-51. That's the one time he didn't crack 40. 42 against Houston. And JK was asked about this last time we talked to the pregame, and he's like, yeah, we'd love to trim his minutes, but I can't promise we're not going to play him 40 again tonight. Well, it went in overtime, 44 last night, and Kyrie, he's playing with a bulging disc in his back.
And by the way, he's probably going to get doubled every time down the court because he's the only guy on the team that can really dribble the ball. So, it's just it's a heck of a load to put on him, and it's a really potentially rough situation. That's without still knowing the status of Daniel Gafford. I mean, at least if they had him, they'd have one starter quality big. If they don't have him, they're down him, Derek Lively, and Anthony Davis. Now you're talking about trying to play Dwight Powell.
No, buddy. Dwight Powell hasn't played in weeks.
Well, that's right. He's been banged up too. That's right.
And Maxi Kleber, before he got traded, broke his foot. Don't be a center on the Mavs. Jeez.
Well, the one center on the Mavs is a gentleman named Kyler Kelly, who I'll be honest with you. I'm
just learning of him.
I had never heard of him until they picked him up I think it was right after Maxi's. He was on the Lakers G League team, and they signed him to a two-way. He played 1 minute last night.
Another Laker Mavericks transaction.
And I don't have specifics on Gafford, but from what I'm hearing, it's probably not going to be like a long-term deal. But I would be surprised if we see him before the All-Star break, certainly. But if Gafford can't go, I think Omax Prosper is probably going to be your starting center. He's the guy who played.
He is not a
most
center.
of the second half. He's not a center. Well, you know what? We'll see if PJ can play. PJ Washington was out last night with an ankle sprain. Also not a center.
Also not a center.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about playing extraordinarily small then. And we talked about how the Thunder were struggling to play extraordinarily small. And let's just say the Thunder are a little bit deeper of a roster than the Mavs at this point, especially if you're trying to play small. So, you're trying to play small, one guy that you reliably can handling the ball.
And unfortunately, you're trying to play small when one of the whole ideas of this trade was you were going to be huge. Like when they had the first half against the Rockets, when they put Gafford out there, they put AD at the 4, they put PJ Washington at the 3. You're like, holy smokes, this is a massive, athletic, smothering front court. And, if you put Lively in there instead of Gafford, you get even bigger and more athletic. That's the team they built. That's the team they want. And to have none of those guys available and you're playing like 6-7 and under, maybe JK was back in the back trying to figure out lineup combinations. He just didn't have time to chit chat.
And MacMahon, you're going to be at the Warriors game when they play in Dallas at the American Airlines Center on Wednesday night. They're 2-2 on this 7-game road trip. They got to vacate their building for 10 days or whatever, 12 days for the All-Star festivities. So they're on the 7-game road trip. They're 2-2. They're coming to Texas. play Dallas on Wednesday, at Houston on Thursday. They're 2-0 since Jimmy Butler went into the starting lineup. And in those two games that Jimmy has played, he has 28 free throws, including 15 that he had in Milwaukee on Monday night. That is the most free throws that any Warriors had in a 2-game span since Durant in 2018. So already
Look at
you
you
are
get
seeing.
make it look smart.
Yeah. Well, I've done 7 hours of TV today. If I don't have some of this stuff memorized, I'm in trouble. If right there, you can see the impact that Jimmy Butler is already making. He is saying that he is nowhere near basketball shape. He is saying that he's really upset with how out of condition he is. But still, he has made a difference. Bontemps, this is exactly what they've been looking for. Maybe not specifically somebody with this skill set that Butler has, but somebody to balance Steph, who, by the way, is hot right now. I think he's averaged, I think he scored over 30 in 4 straight games. Bontemps, this is what the Warriors have been looking for. I don't know if it lasts, but I can certainly understand why it is something that they needed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that Steph and Jimmy are fitting well. I sort of assumed they would when the trade happened. Jimmy's one of the smartest players in the league. He his skill set, I think, meshes very nicely with Steph's because they operate in different parts of the court. They can run some pick and roll stuff together with him as a big, which they've done a little bit of, and I think will help. And like you said, this is a team that historically has never gotten to the foul line and has never really put pressure on the referees in that manner. And Jimmy Butler is a super physical guy who is going to give them a different element in that respect. So from that standpoint, I think it is going to be a really nice fit. Now, how are the Warriors going to defend? That's going to be an interesting thing to see. Andrew Wiggins would take on a lot of the elite perimeter assignments. Jimmy, at this point in his career, can do that, I think, in spurts. He certainly shouldn't be doing that every night. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge. And again, like we've talked about a bunch, if you're playing him and Draymond Green together, you're not going to have a lot of space on the court. And, that is something that Steph Curry and Steve Kerr have talked
Well, you
about
have
for months
underestimated
now.
Mr. Quentin Post, sir.
No,
Well,
don't you
Quentin
do
Post
that.
he's been a really nice story for them. Guy out of BC
Use
he's
his
become a
name
really
correctly.
nice.
Quentin
Okay, go ahead.
Perimeter. Quentin Perimeter.
Okay. He's had a very nice season for them as a late
He's
second round
Dutch. I
pick who
didn't
was
know the
on a
name
two-way. And
Quentin was popular in the Netherlands, but now I know.
I mean, he's had a very nice season for them this year, but ultimately, this team is built around the combination of the 3 old guys, right? Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy. And if you've got Draymond and Jimmy out there, even though both of them can hit a 3, neither one of them is really a shooter. It puts a lot of pressure on Steph, and defenses can load up on him, and that's where Jimmy's ability to handle the ball, to make plays, to run 2-man action with Steph, I think will help a lot. But that's going to be the thing to test and see as this next couple months plays out, is how the offense looks for these guys. And then again, when they're going up against these elite players on the other team, how are they going to match up and who's going to guard them? But certainly Jimmy's given them a nice boost. And, I think, going into the break, he gets a chance to get his legs under him and work on his conditioning. Jimmy, for all of his everything else anybody's ever said about him, no one's ever accused him of not working on his game and on his body. So I suspect he's going to be ready to go, and he's certainly motivated to show the Warriors made the right decision in trading for him. So, it's going to be a very interesting stretch run, and it's a very interesting game. Like we talked about earlier, this game on Wednesday is really critical for both teams for playoff positioning, and it's a real 2-game swing on both sides. They play at both sides of the break, and it would be
Well, Steve
huge if Golden
Kerr
State could win this one and go home, maybe get another one.
Steve Kerr has set the standard. He believes that this team can, with Jimmy Butler powering it, helping power it. He thinks he set the standard as 6th seed. He's like, the goal is the 6th seed. As we sit here today, they're 3 games in the loss column out, MacMahon. But they believe they can avoid the play-in altogether.
And Bontemps told us it wasn't going to be a problem fit-wise. I had questions about the shooting, but I know you liked my early AM wee hours of the morning Sports Center comp, that Thunder and Lightning backfield, baby. But it really is, like you mentioned, Jimmy's free throws, right? Because he's a battering ram. Like he is a downhill attacking, big, strong. He's like that fullback who just pounds it between the tackles. And Steph is obviously the best perimeter shooter that has ever graced the face of this earth. 28 free throws for Jimmy Butler in the last 2 games, 32 threes attempted for Steph Curry. If they're coming close to that kind of volume just in attempts, then that's a really nice winning formula for the Warriors. Hey, I have a
But
question, a Quentin
yeah.
related question. When he heats up, could we call him the Dutch oven?
Bontemps this morning at like 6:30 a.m. Central, like probably more like 6:20. Ryan Smith, the
Yeah.
Sports Center anchor, was name checking you, and MacMahon and I were like, we did not get up this early to have you
Who?
praised on
Ryan
television.
Smith's a smart fella. That's all I'll say. Very
Yeah,
smart
but
Hey,
you
guy.
were
that's,
sleeping soundly.
you don't make billions about the Utah Jazz without having some brains in you.
Yeah. Well, the Warriors, they are the beneficiary or one of the beneficiaries of the Mavericks hitting this turbulent zone of the season because they are a team that's in front of them. The Kings go through a massive change in front of them as well. I mean, we'll see. DeRozan had an incredible game and win in Dallas the other night. It's hard for me to forecast what's going to happen with the Kings, but
I mean, I don't think
uh,
they got worse at the trade deadline. They might be
I don't
better.
think either. But I'm not sure they got better.
I
So
mean, look, we talked about it last week. I don't think if you had Zach LaVine for DeMar DeRozan or for De'Aaron Fox, I don't think that's a huge difference. I like Jake LaRavia on the wing. It's a small piece, but he's had a nice year in Memphis. He gives them some size as a
Yeah,
combo
I like
forward.
that.
They didn't really have that kind of player. What'd you say, MacMahon?
I did like that pickup. He's a guy that the Grizzlies gave up on in terms of not picking up the fourth year option, but he's had a nice year, and they're limited in what they can offer next year. But he's a nice 6'8", kind of versatile wing forward, like depth
the other
forward.
the other two teams in front of them are Minnesota, who's been playing well. They won eight out of 10. Ant, I think, has 3 or 4 40-point games like in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They got steamrolled by the Cavs corners uh, on Monday, but still they've been playing well. And then the other team's the Clippers, which they're right now in the 6th seed, which is going to be the spot everybody wants. That's a lot of teams to crawl over, but
It is.
the Warriors, have if they're healthy, they have a fighting chance at it. So, all
I
right,
mean,
we'll
it's a
be
lot
right
of
back on
teams
Hoop
to go
Watch.
over, but they're all it's a lot of teams to go over, but they're all tied in the loss column right now, really. So, it's
That's true.
doable.
The Warriors are 3 games back of the Clippers in the loss column.
Yeah, same bottom picture
I
math.
just
They're all
meant
tied.
from 11 to 8. 11 to 8, like with the two teams that are playing Wednesday night, like those two teams, Phoenix and Sacramento, are all tied. So, it's one thing to say you're in 11th. It's another thing to say you're tied for 8th, and you got to get ahead of
Well,
two
the
teams
team
there.
that's 7
So,
games ahead of them in the loss column is the LA Lakers, who haven't lost in a couple of weeks. Lakers have won 7 games in a row. By the way, so have the Nuggets, who they can't gain any ground on. But those two teams have basically separated themselves a little bit in the 2-3 spot. The Rockets have been sliding. So Luka couldn't have had a softer landing. Anthony Davis came back, had to play against the Rockets, rivalry game, had to go up against an all-star,
Mhm.
and Luka comes out to play the Jazz. No offense to a friend of the pod, Will Hardy, but he couldn't have picked a better spot for them. It was a very comfortable way for him to ease back into it. There's been so much attention on how LeBron and Luka will play together. I was not really paying attention to that on the first night. Obviously, there'll be something to keep an eye on, but I'm more interested to see the effect on Austin Reeves, who's been having the best stretch of his career and gets the ball in his hands. That's how he plays. I don't know if you saw this, MacMahon. Now, granted, he played only 23 minutes, Luka did, because it was a
Mhm.
blowout and they were bringing him back from the injury. But he brought the ball up only 9 times,
Oh,
which I think was the lowest of his career. It was the lowest of his career, or lowest in a number of years. So I don't
yeah.
know if that's the JJ Redick strategy, or if that was just easing him in. But Austin Reeves had another big game at 22 points. He's got a
I
streak of
I'm
20
not
points.
taking much away from anything from a game where Luka hasn't played in weeks and they're playing the corpse of the Utah Jazz.
That's
Well,
fine.
also,
I'm just saying
it's
Austin Reeves was bringing the ball up the court a lot.
I understand, but he hasn't played in 6 weeks, and to me, it's like what mattered was he got through the game healthy. Like I don't, we're not going to
Well, I
learn
guess
anything
that's.
from these games against Utah. Well,
Well,
I'm
I
just saying,
decided
I
I
don't.
learned
I
something from it.
it's
okay,
basically a
that's fine.
preseason
I
game for
just
Luka, though, right?
yeah,
Like Bontemps
that's
said,
the
hadn't played
point.
since Christmas, brand new team. It's like the most pomp and circumstance around a preseason game in the history of the world, other than maybe some of these like overseas
Right.
specials type of thing.
By the way,
But
speaking of overseas specials, it wasn't that long ago that the Mavericks made a special stop in Madrid. Remember, they were in Abu Dhabi and they were like,
Yep.
"We're going to
yeah,
stop in Madrid just to chill for Luka."
where by the way,
Boy,
Luca strained his
those were good
calf.
days.
No, they played in Madrid. Lucas strained his
Oh,
calf. They played against Real Madrid,
oh,
and he went out
that's
there and
right.
kind of hobbled around for 5 minutes just because he didn't want to disappoint the Madrid crowd. But listen,
That's
yeah,
right.
Right.
that's what's so crazy. Like the Mavericks, there's a whole book written about how much they catered and coddled this guy, and tried
Really?
to build a contender around him,
What's it
and
called?
the Wonder Boy. And but seriously, like Luca's happiness was Mark Cuban's top priority when Cuban was running that franchise. From the time they drafted Luca until the time Cuban sold the franchise, Luca's happiness was Cuban's top priority. Cuban had zero power. The heads up was like literally a matter of minutes that this trade was happening. There's a 0% chance it would ever have happened under Cuban's watch, but I call him the world's richest mascot for a reason. It's because he doesn't have any juice in the organization anymore. He gave that up, was hoping to cling on
What
to
happened
it.
to that proprietor nickname?
Uh, yeah, I don't know.
Moniker.
I don't know. He's a boy, Cuban though. He was giving it back to some of these fans. He doesn't like if you want a chance to fire Nico, you can't do it with the Mavericks or shooting free throws because Cuban will stand up and tell you to shut the and sit the down.
Well, listen. Here's what I'd say on this. I look. The Jazz are who they are. I'm not taking a lot out of this game or the game Wednesday. To MacMahon's point, I think we look at this preseason. They come back after the break. They played the rescheduled game against Charlotte, which is interesting because of the Mark Williams trade hanging
Yeah,
over it, and then they play Portland the following night in Portland. But after that, they're in Denver, home for Dallas, home for Minnesota, home for the Clippers, home for the Clippers again. Then they've got the Pelicans, the Knicks, the Celtics, the Nets, the Bucks, the Nuggets, the Suns, the Spurs. And then the Nuggets and Bucks again. So they've got a pretty healthy stretch with a couple softies in there against a bunch of
sure.
playoff teams for about a month. That's when I think we're going to really learn about what the overall dynamic of this Laker team is. And look, the fact that they've ripped off some wins here against teams like the Knicks and the Celtics and some of these teams while they're banged up. I mean, right now the Lakers have won 6 in a row. They've won 9 of their last 10. They're 5 losses up on Minnesota for 7th, and they got a real shot to have home court in the Western Conference playoffs with a healthy Luka Doncic, which is probably the craziest part of that entire sentence. So,
Yeah, and I'll wager right
they put
now
themselves in
that
a great situation.
Luka's not going to have another game this year where he only brings the ball up the floor 9 times. Like you don't make a blockbuster trade to get a guy who just averaged 34, 10, and 9
We might
to
have another
not.
one. You might have another one Wednesday, so you might want to say after the break. But
I think they'll be ramping him up. My point is, you don't trade for that guy not to put the ball in his hands. I do
right.
think you'll see a lot of like when he made that 3/4 court pass to LeBron for the layup. I think you'll see a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that. He was the best look-ahead passer in the league, like statistically by far last year. If guys will run with Luka, he's as good as there is at grabbing a rebound, whipping his head around, and he's looking to just let that thing fly, and he can put it on the money from 80 feet out. It's like he told me last year. He could have been the quarterback for the Cowboys.
Well, the other thing
Maybe
that's funny
maybe
about it
now the
is,
Rams. Maybe if Stafford retires, he'll take over there. So I was hanging out with
could
Luka
be.
Nakua last night.
Could be. I mean, the funny thing about where the Lakers are at now, after the failed physical on the trade with Mark Williams, is that they're going to have to play fast, despite having LeBron and Luka on the team, if they're going to want to be successful in theory, because they're going to have to play super small all the time. Even if they get, they've got Jackson Hayes, maybe they get Alex Len as a buyout guy, but like they're not. These guys aren't going to be guys that are playing crazy minutes for them in the playoffs. They're going to have to win playing Dorian Finney-Smith at the 5, playing Rui Hachimura at the 5, playing super small, spacing the floor, picking and popping like they did against the Knicks at the Garden here a couple Saturdays ago before the trade. And it's going to be interesting to see how 40-year-old LeBron and Luka respond and react to that. Because like you said, if you have Luka triggering fast break offense, it could look pretty damn good.
Maxi Kleber was salary filler in his deal for the most part, but I'm just telling you, and obviously it's going to be a while. He's got a broken foot. Maxi Kleber has been a very useful player for the Mavericks over the years, and particularly in playoffs because, and you look at his numbers, like, what are you talking about? Like, the guy's got 3 points and 3 rebounds, but he can space the floor and he can play the 5 and switch everything. You can play a 5-out style and a switch everything style with Maxi Kleber playing the 5. And this is a team that could really use that sort of guy because, like you just laid out, their options at the 5 right now are so limited. We heard a few months when he broke it, which was back in, it was like January-ish.
Mid-January. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like maybe he can get back by the end of the regular season, So, but especially if they make a little bit of a playoff.
I hadn't even considered it, to be honest with you.
Now, it's obviously, look, it'd be a really tough situation if, let's just say hypothetically, all right, you're back, you're clear to go on April 15th. By the way, you've been living in a hotel for a few months. You've not been able to practice with his team at all. You know 2 guys on the team because you play with Dodo. I guess he knows Christian Wood. Oh wait, Christian Wood can come back and save this whole thing. But
it'll just be interesting to see Kleber ready to go for Game 1 of the Finals when LeBron goes back to Cleveland.
If Maxi Kleber can play playoffs, he is unquestionably the best big on the roster and will be a massive factor. Yeah, I heard you.
You just really you walked all over Wendy's prediction. The Cavs was making a finals run.
I just had somebody in Cleveland say that to me today. I said somebody.
We had a Bernie Kosar reference and a Cavs finals reference on the pod. We got
LeBron back to Cleveland for the finals. Tell me.
It'd be a hell of a storyline, wouldn't it?
Sure would be.
All right.
For the land, not the witness, baby.
We have an interesting situation developing. It's sort of, front office, back of house stuff, but certainly you care if you're a Wolves fan. On Monday, an arbitration panel, and this gets in the weeds, an arbitration panel ruled in favor of Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry in their dispute with the current owner of the Wolves, Glenn Taylor. Long story short, it's going to come down to a vote of the owners. Lowry and Rodriguez have the money. That's right. Lowry and Rodriguez have the money in escrow. They're ready to buy the team. The arbitrator said that Glenn Taylor violated the contract when he took the team off the market. And so A-Rod and Lowry need 23 of the 30 votes, which I would assume that Mr. Taylor will be voting against it. They need 23 of the 29 votes. Actually, I shouldn't assume that. I don't know what Glenn Taylor is going to do, but there's a,
they need 3/4 of the owners to vote for him one way or the other.
Right. And so we've never really seen anything like this. I would be surprised if it actually came to a roll call where they're calling out the votes. I would think Adam Silver would try to negotiate some sort of settlement. The issue is this. Glenn Taylor can say whatever he wants. I'm not going to say anything that he has said is not true. I'm just going to say that he made this deal in 2021 when the Timberwolves were in their playoff drought. Ant Edwards was just a prospect, and we were coming out of the pandemic. The team sold for $1.5 billion. Since then, 4 teams have sold, all of them for over $3 billion. Most recently, we saw the Mavericks sell for $3.5 billion. We saw the Hornets and the Bucks controlling shares sell for over $3 billion in value, which is at least double or more than the Timberwolves. And Ant Edwards has turned into a superstar, and they are looking very up. And so they also are an extremely expensive team. So I'm not going to predict what's going to happen. I will just tell you that we are in an unprecedented situation where the owners, there's going to be lobbying within there. I'm not even going to tell you I know which is better for the Wolves organization. Um, but we are in an interesting situation, Bontemps.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how this goes because it goes back to sort of what are the motivations of the other owners involved here, right? And certainly, I think the most likely outcome is one way or the other. There is some sort of a settlement um, between the two parties, and this gets resolved that way. But, look, you're talking about having to win a room, and on the one hand, you could say the arbitrators ruled in favor of Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez, and therefore they should get the votes and have control of the team. On the other hand, you could have a motivated group of people in that room say, you know what, we don't want to be in a situation where our peers are telling us what to do with our teams. And if there's a situation like this and we don't want to have to sell our team if something like this comes up, we don't want to set a precedent where that is going to happen. There's a lot of different ways you could evaluate how this is going to play out. It's why I think, to your point, it would be pretty surprising if it got to a quote unquote roll call vote, because I think that could be fraught for the league on a few levels. But it is going to be fascinating to see how it plays out because these teams don't come available very often. And like we've talked about a lot, both this Minnesota situation and the Boston situation, I think both have to get resolved before the league is going to turn its attention to the expansion process, which obviously is something a lot of people have interest in, and we're waiting to see what the next steps on that are.
Oh, I'll say it's interesting that. Sorry, I'll say it's interesting. Mark Lowry is on the cover of Forbes this week, where he is being declared by Forbes America's newest billionaire. Which I don't want to assume why he did that story, but my guess is to send a message to his potential new peers. Well, he is already a part owner of the league. His peers, that he can fund and pay for this team. But if you're Glenn Taylor and you're like, wow, he's been doing very well over the last few years since I sold the team to him for 1.5. Maybe you like, well, you can afford more. So if you don't want me to make an issue of this vote, how about we renegotiate the sale? Which, I'm sure Mark Lowry is going to be like, no, we signed 1.5. I'm going to give you 1.5. Have a nice day. So, billionaire games, MacMahon.
Yeah, no, I feel for him. It's a tough deal. I just wish part of our, we paid him all these billions that our company paid him. We should have been able to get the rights to like these kind of meetings and these kind of votes. That'd be good TV.
You talking about A-Rod?
I'm talking about like put all these billionaires in a row. Okay, roll call. Let's do a vote. That'd be good TV.
That would be amazing TV. Hey, let's roll call who's going to get the team. Talk about a made for TV special.
Hey, late breaking news: Brandon Ingram, 3 years, $120 million from the Toronto Raptors. God bless America. I mean Canada. And how about a player option on the end of that? He wanted $40 million a year. The Pelicans weren't willing to go there. He got traded, and he's getting his $40 million a year. Bontemps.
Brandon Ingram is maybe the biggest winner of the whole trade deadline week. I mean, he did not have a huge market. He spent a year trying to get traded out of New Orleans. He gets to a place that really wanted him. Not only, to your point, paid him the number he was hoping to get, even more so maybe, also gave him a player option. So it's a huge bet by the Raptors on the fit of he, Scotty Barnes, and Emmanuel Quickley. Very curious to see how it plays out. Also curious to see when Brandon Ingram plays because he's still out with this ankle sprain. I don't think he's playing through the All-Star break. So we'll see when he actually makes his debut with the Raptors.
Hey, coming up on Friday's pod. Sorry to stamp on you, MacMahon. I believe we've got straw poll coming.
Ooh,
we
BS poll.
We'll see.
I know I voted.
Has MacMahon sent you his vote yet?
Oh yeah,
he has. Amazingly, both you and MacMahon. Well, not amazingly, because MacMahon always votes quickly. You actually sent your vote right away for once. I didn't have to chase you down. So thank you for that.
Can't wait. All right. Thank you to our producer, Rafa. Thank you to MacMahon. Thank you to Bontemps. Thank you to all the fans of the Dallas Mavericks. We will talk to you later this week.
Adios, amigos.